Welcome to PV Magazine Live. This is Christian Roseland, America's editor at PV Magazine, and I'm joined here by Costa Nicolau, the CEO of PanelClaw. Costa, thanks for taking the moment to talk with me.
Thank you, and thanks for all the work that you do with PV Magazine and educating the industry. It's really appreciated.
Thank you, thank you. So let's jump right into this. Now, obviously, we're 10 days away from a decision on the Section 201 trade case in terms of the finding of injury. PanelClaw has come out with other racking and tracking manufacturers to take a stand on this initiative. Can you talk a little bit about why this is important for your industry sector, which you're part of U.S. solar manufacturing, to be active on the 201 trade case?
Sure. I think we owe it to the industry in the U.S. To look out for the industry, and this trade case has been about anything but looking out for the industry in the U.S. The notion that increasing the price of solar is going to generate jobs is just mathematically impossible in our sector. So for a company to claim that by raising prices we're going to create manufacturing jobs in the United States, just unconscionable to impossible. And I don't know how many other words I can use to describe it. So we felt that we had to take a stand. And when you look at the U.S. market, manufacturing jobs in steel are not in modules in the U.S. for the right reasons. They're in racking. And those jobs have been growing and thriving in the sector. And those are the jobs that are actually being affected by this trade case. So we had to take a stand as a sector, as a racking sector, against this petition.
This is really interesting to me because when we talk about manufacturing, so often we're talking about cells and modules. And I feel like the racking and tracking, it's almost like an invisible sector. It's just one that's not really mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about how that dynamic works and where are the big centers of manufacturing for racking and tracking in the country?
Sure. So why aren't we really talked about? Well, if you buy a flat panel TV and you go to somebody's house, they don't say, oh, wow, nice mounting system behind that TV. They talk about the pixels. They talk about how crisp the image is. They talk about the size of the TV, but they don't talk about the mounting system behind it. And we've gotten used to it. In the solar sector, the mounting system is the last thing people talk about. We don't produce electrons. We enable the production of electrons. So we're not surprised. When it comes to what we mean to the industry, well, we mean jobs. We mean steel jobs. We mean local steel jobs. See, the difference between the management of companies like SolarWorld and Suniva and the management of racking companies is that we also compete on a global market. But we've developed strategies that have allowed us to succeed domestically. And the panel manufacturers, Suniva and SolarWorld specifically, SolarWorld decided to build a factory in the United States. They could have built that factory, they're a German company, they could have built that factory anywhere in the world, and they chose the United States. They chose poorly. And that's not our industry's fault. Suniva made a bet on the cell efficiency and on research that was being conducted to increase and improve cell efficiency. That bet didn't pan out. That is not the industry's fault. So there's a lot to this case, but when we look at the harm that it's doing to the sector in the U.S. versus the minuscule potential benefit that it could create for two companies that made bad decisions, it just doesn't make sense.
And can you talk a little bit about the market? I mean, I've heard various things about modules being hoarded, PPAs not being signed, being delayed at being signed, and at the same time, this is happening at a time when the solar market seems to be growing and thriving, and even when we talk about the ways that solar is being procured, it's so much broader than it used to be. So what do you see in the dynamics overall in the market right now?
Yeah, so racking companies have an early and a late look at projects. So we understand what's going on before the market usually sees it. We have an early seat at the table. And here's what we've seen unequivocally. As soon as the trade case was filed, there was a rush. And then what happened after that was really pretty negative for developers and EPCs, and that is prices went up. Projects that were penciling stopped penciling, so projects got canceled, projects got put on hold. Negotiations were restarted on PPA contracts or on cash deals, and it really took a market that in CNI, which is what we see, and specifically in flat roof space within CNI, that was doing quite well this year and brought it to a time of chaos. Now, this too shall pass, but that is very real. PanelClaw, we were on track for a great year this year. We're seeing order intake, we're seeing shipments, everything in historic highs. And now we're just having a good year. So it really has a major impact. And that's just one company. I know companies that had that were impacted much more negatively than us, and it hurts us to see that.
So, assuming that the 201 trade case, that the ITC does find injury, and assuming that there are trade remedies imposed, how does the industry move forward and the market move forward in the United States? How do we recover from this?
Yeah, so short term and long term. Short term, there will absolutely, if you look at the GTM data, if you look at analysts, and if you talk to executives, there will be a short term impact. How big the impact of a short term impact? It depends on what the White House does. If there's injury, if it's a ceremonial tariff, we're going to be just fine. If it's a monumental tariff, yeah, it's going to impact companies. Some will be prepared and some will not be able to handle it. So there will be a shakeout. Long term, we're going to be just fine. This is a very resilient industry. We're not going anywhere. We will find ways to address the price going up. We will find other places to take cost out. And we will do so without filing trade cases, by the way.
Great. Thank you so much, Costa.
It's my pleasure. And again, thank you for the work that you do. We're very happy to see market education through the trade media, and you guys do a phenomenal job. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is Christian Roseland here at the Solar Power International Trade Show 2017 in Las Vegas.